Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to talk about the NFL's division round games, and then a little bit about baseball before jumping back into the NFL conference championship games. We'll start in the same place we've been starting for many, many weeks now, with the most interesting stories from last week's NFL games. The Chiefs won after a Mahomes injury, held on for victory there. Was that the most interesting story, or was the Phillies blowout more interesting, or one of the other games? What was most intriguing to you, Mike?
Well, partly it's because I'm a Kansas City homer, but also partly because I think this is the story that is the main story of the week happening right now before the game. That is Mahomes' injury. I think some people would say, well, the Bengals beating the Bills was a surprise in doing it so well, but I think that was less of a surprise to me. I thought the Bengals were as good or better than the Bills.
We both would have picked that. You
yeah,
did,
and
I would have had you not already picked that one.
And in the snow, I think any pass rush against the Bengals would be kind of minimized, and so Denver. The Buffalo really couldn't take advantage of Cincinnati's problems on their offensive line,
right?
And they could run it straight ahead, and they did that a lot. And then Burrow didn't throw for that many yards, and they only scored 27 points. It's not like they really overwhelmed Buffalo with firepower or whatever. It was 27 points. They scored 27 points against Buffalo. They didn't even score 4 touchdowns. It's not like it's huge blow. They kept the Bills from scoring, and a lot of that was because I think you need to have a running game in the snow, and the Bills
don't at all.
Don't have one outside of Allen, and Allen didn't play well. So I'm less. I guess I am less on the sort of Joe Burrow hype train than I would be. I think Mahomes on one leg was just as impressive as in terms of his numbers as Burrow. I think probably the Jacksonville defense right now is better than the Buffalo defense, because the Buffalo defense, they have no secondary, and they have they're absent Von Miller, so their best pass rusher, and I think they were down. I think their number 5 safety is starting for them, and they're down corners and stuff. So it was
a lot tougher.
Yeah, I think as the Bills were hyped in the early going, they really were not that good as the season went on, though. So it's not the same. It's not the same Bills team that played against Kansas City. Maybe it was the same Bills team plus DeMar Hamlin that probably would have also gotten blown out in Cincinnati had that incident not happened, given the way Cincinnati was moving the ball. So I it's a big win. We'll talk about Cincinnati more, but I think the Mahomes story is the big one, though. I think in NFC, the games, maybe the individual games went differently from how people might have imagined, at least differently from how I imagined. Not differently from you. I think you got both of those games right in your bet. No, I got neither. I did think San Francisco was probably going to win. I would have taken San Francisco -4, but I was not. But anyway, those games were more predictable, and they went according to script, more or less. I guess the Giants were not as good as we thought, and maybe the Cowboys also weren't very good. But I think the Mahomes ankle thing is the thing that I'm thinking about all the time, and so that's the most.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, and should we be more impressed that Chad Henne was able to come into the game and lead the team immediately on a 98-yard drive to get points on the board without having played meaningful snaps all season? I mean, that ended up being really significant to the game.
Yeah, it was really good. Henny did get very fortunate on that tipped pass fairly early on that easily could have been intercepted by Jacksonville at like about the Chiefs 30. But
Yeah.
other than that, the drive went pretty smoothly. There was a roughing the passer penalty that added 15 yards, but that was after the Chiefs already made a first down on the play.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pacheco's run was the next one. So like it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference in the scheme of things. It was probably a roughing the passer makeup call on like it was the same player Key who hit Mahomes, who also hit Henny a little bit in the face mask, so maybe that was part of it. But Henny was impressive. He only had 23 yards passing though, and so it was mostly a running. It was good running, and Henny did what he needed to do. It was in the spot. It was great, but yeah, he did a great job stepping in. I guess I shouldn't malign Henny's performance, but it was not the same type of drive that would have been probably if Mahomes had been in the game. Yeah.
But now when we go back to when we were talking about this in the preseason, did they make the right choice? Now, is that justified, the decision to keep Henny on the roster before the season even started to be the backup quarterback then? Does that justify it right there, right? He's earned his money, right?
You could say they didn't make a wrong choice because it worked. Like, there's nothing to say that Shane Buechele wouldn't have done the same thing. But, I guess safer in that moment. So I guess it worked. But, like, it's not like the only thing that could have worked.
Sure.
And if that one tip pass had gone slightly differently, it wouldn't have worked. So it was like, some of it was luck. Some of it was, I think, Henny's kind of poise and stability that he added back there. So sometimes these games really, what's a great play from a horrible play? It's a matter of inches and kind of a fortunate bounce here and there. And I think every team gets those, but I don't think the Chiefs in general that game had more good bounces than bad, because of course they had Mahomes got hurt, which is a much kind of worse lucky break than a near miss interception. But so it's with these samples this small, it's a small sample size. Kind of, we say, okay, yeah, it was this wonderful drive. It was one drive. Had Henny had to stay in the whole game, I'm not sure the Chiefs would have won.
Yeah, there's no way to know. Yeah, did you think that the Chiefs might leave Henny in to start the second half?
The way they were talking about it, it seemed like they would.
I thought they might have. I thought they might have left Henny in until they absolutely needed Mahomes to come back. Like if it got to be tied or they got behind, somewhere in that scenario. But
yeah, I think I would have gone
back in that environment.
I think the way the Chiefs did it is better. And if Mahomes had been hurt more and more, put Henny in. But I think making a hurt player possibly play from behind and come back is worse than leaving him in and then seeing what the backup can do if it starts to get tight, or if Mahomes is not able to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Because it's possible that if Henny wasn't doing so well, you put Mahomes in there, he might have done even worse, and then you don't know. So you might as well try your starter first and then see what happens. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a head injury. It wasn't like a career threatening kind of injury. It was an ankle. So I think, and this is the game that the Chiefs had to win. So I think they made the right decision by play.
I did like the way that they had caught on video that very moment when Mahomes was told that he had to go get the X-ray or he wasn't coming back into the game, and his emotional response to that was pretty telling as to what kind of a competitor he is, right? Like he wants to be in there, and he would have played, I think, in almost any scenario. He found out that he had a broken leg.
He probably
would have tried to go back out there anyway, right?
If he had broken his ankle, he would have played. He would have wanted to play, I think. So it's because they wanted him to get an X-ray to make sure it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
And make his knee might have been messed up too. It was a. Do you, I've read online and kind of heard whispers about the tackle. Do you think that tackle was intentional by the Jaguars on Mahomes's leg, or was that just kind of a fluky thing?
When I saw it, I did not think it was a dirty play, but it's just one of those things that happens. That was my at least gut response anyway. So, and I mean, I kind of see how people could think that it was maybe intentional, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it had a little bit of kind of a
so?
horse collar effect to it, even if it wasn't a horse collar tackle. The way he kind of got bent back and landed on.
Did go back, yeah.
But and given the fact that the Jaguars have a little bit of a reputation against the Chiefs, at least from this year, as being kind of dirty, with the Juju hit. But I'm not sure. It wasn't blatant if it was, but yeah, it's hard to tell. And a lot of those were slowed down, so it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But it was unfortunate either way. I don't think it wasn't like super egregious. I don't think if it.
I mean, in the moment, the Cisco hit on Juju from the early regular season game, I thought was dirty the second I saw it, and then seemed to be confirmed by the hits that came later from the same player to other Chiefs receivers later in the game. So I'm still pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
that wasn't legit, but I didn't see it as much as seemingly intentional later anyway in the against Mahomes. But
yeah, this was after the game that I saw people talking about it. But yeah, do you want to talk about our bet with that game before we move on to the other games?
Sounds good.
This is where you started your in what became an insurmountable lead on the weekend.
Yeah.
You had what was your bet?
So I took the under in the game. It was 53 was the line. 27-20 was the final score. So stayed at 47. So a touchdown minus an extra point under. So successful bet for my first pick.
And it was helped. I think your bet in this case was helped by the Mahomes injury.
A bit,
even if it's because it's possible
likely.
I think the Chiefs would have scored more points had Mahomes. I think they would have gotten a touchdown on the drive where they ended up getting a field goal. That first when they had it was 7-7 and the Chiefs were driving, and then they couldn't Mahomes couldn't move and tried to couldn't even throw the ball straight. He just kind of threw the ball into the dirt.
Right.
And they ended up kicking a field goal there. Butker turned out to be really good this game. He kicked 2 50-yard field goals. And all his extra points. So it's possible the Chiefs would have scored more. And maybe if the Chiefs had scored more, I don't know, Jacksonville actually might have scored fewer because they couldn't have probably relied on the run game very much, which was really helping them. They would have had to throw more, and they didn't. Lawrence wasn't really able to connect with a lot of his receivers. So who knows what the score would have been. But I think the spread, though, was I was unfortunate there. I had the Chiefs minus 8.5. This seemed like the way Mahomes was playing, this seemed like a big victory that the Chiefs are going to go on to double digits at least, it seemed. And that didn't end up being the case though. So the Chiefs were ahead by 10 in the closing minutes, but the Jaguars were going for kind of what would have been a miracle comeback down 10. So they kicked the field goal first to make it down 7, and then they missed the onside kick. So they would have had to score a touchdown off that onside kick in 19 or 20 seconds or something like
less
that.
Than 30 seconds.
Yeah. But teams only recently started kicking the extra point. I mean, kicking the field goal first. They used to always go for the touchdown first, but it's it is smarter to kick because you need 2. You want to save time. So
it just seems like that you're trying to get the easy one out of the way, and then praying harder for an even more difficult outcome to get the touchdown after an onside kick, which is seemingly odds are very low. I still think the mentality should be to go for the touchdown first, unless you're like it's so far, it's a fourth and so long that you think you have no chance to get a first down. But I still think, especially if it's the Chiefs, they would probably go for it, even if it's like 4th and 30. I would think. If
I don't know.
In field goal range, you'd almost think that if it's the Chiefs scenario, they might go for it and then see what happens, later. But yeah, it seems like the go-to right now is the strategy of kick the field goal first, and then, a prayer is a prayer, right? It doesn't matter which.
Mm-hmm.
How
the Chargers against the Chiefs. The Chargers against the Chiefs earlier this year did not do that. I think we talked about that, how it was the wrong strategy. They went for the touchdown, which was riskier, but they actually got the touchdown.
Yeah,
and then that also enabled them to cover the spread against me. So it either way, it's I'm getting screwed on the the kind of attempted miracle plays, like where they need 2 possessions in less than a minute, and they're gonna it's whatever this. It's like they knew what my bet was, and they just wanted to cover.
It's most likely personal vendetta that teams have against you. I assume. I have no reason to think otherwise. That's what I'm
saying. So, any other thoughts on the Chiefs Jaguars game?
Well, I guess so. From what we know now, Mahomes does have a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything else yet. We're filming this on Tuesday night. I think there should have some more update tomorrow on Wednesday from Andy Reid. But we don't know anything now anymore, at least anyway.
From what I've heard and read, Mahomes has said like he feels better than he thought he would. And I actually saw a thing from Andy Reid or somewhere that Mahomes had a similar injury against Jacksonville at the beginning of either 2019 or 2020 season. I think that was the Super Bowl year, actually, 2020 season, when he was hurt and they couldn't. And then Mahomes hurt his knee during that year when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I think that season maybe was when he was had that injury against Jacksonville, and he played the next few games, but he was kind of limited. Although the next game he played against the Raiders, and he threw for 400 something yards and 4 touchdowns in 1 quarter in that game. So who knows? It seemed like he was more hobbled. This time than he was. But it happened later in the game against the Jaguars. So who knows?
He seemed to be getting around okay. It wasn't great, but yeah, early on when he tried to play, like right after the injury, I think most of Kansas City and probably many other places were just like, just sit down, just take a seat, right? Like, don't get more hurt, right?
Yeah, I was really excited how the game was starting, and then Jacksonville tied it, and then Mahomes got hurt. So it was not a happy moment, that's for sure.
It was looking like nightmare scenario initially.
Yeah. At least it just turned out to be an ankle rather than a knee, and it seemed like once he got taped a little bit, he did a little bit better. But after halftime, he was pretty much this. I don't know. He wasn't himself, but he was able to do, at least with his arm, a lot of the things he could do before. The scrambling ability was not there, but
he did scramble that one time. It didn't
look
very good, but he did do it once. The scrambling.
Yeah, the throw to MVS in the end zone was really impressive. And apparently he was like down on the ground, like everybody picked him up. But they didn't really show that he was on the broadcast. He was like he couldn't even land on his foot though. So
really?
Yeah, he was he was down after that throw and like wasn't getting up very quickly.
Oh wow.
But hopefully he recovers enough to play well against Cincinnati.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Cincinnati
Should we go right into that game?
You want to do that game, or you want to go in order? You want to take the Giants-Eagles game first?
Well, I guess in the chronology, Giants Eagles was next. So yeah, why don't we do that one? We talked about that one yet.
Okay. Well, okay. So this was another game where I lost and Andrew won his bet. Here we were diametrically opposed to one another. The Giants were 7.5-point underdogs. I took the Giants. Dr. Scaff took the Eagles, and smartly so, as it was a 38-7 rout, and it was 28-0 in the first half. And
yeah, the route started early, and it didn't let up.
No. Any takeaways from the Eagles win?
I think I think that Jalen Hurts' shoulder seems to be okay, although we don't really know if it was tested that much. It seemed like the Eagles were doing mostly, running plays. Hurts only threw for 154 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns. That was more than enough that needed to get the win in that game. Yeah, I don't know. I know you weren't a fan of the Giants' strategy in the fourth quarter. Is that right?
Yeah, I was really I was wanting the Giants to make a game of it, not A, just to make it more entertaining, and B, to cover the spread. But they were down 28-7 beginning of the fourth quarter. They had a 4th and 6 from their own 42 with about 13 minutes left, and they decided to punt rather than go for it. And that was when there was really, unless you're just giving up completely, there's no reason to do that in a playoff game when you're down 3 touchdowns. You only probably have 2 more chances to get the ball after this drive.
Yeah.
And it's a win or go home scenario. And what's the worst that's going to happen? The Eagles are going to score more quickly from the 42 rather than from their own 20. The defense hasn't stopped them yet. It's not like the defense is making big plays and turning them, getting turnovers or something like that. It just seemed like they gave up, and maybe like their whole game plan was bad. I don't know. I think the Giants really overachieved this year, and I don't know. I was disappointed with Brian Daboll's performance as coach of this game. I don't think the Giants are this bad, but the team didn't seem ready to play.
Yeah, not a good showing.
I think the Eagles were really kind of had chip on their shoulder, but it shouldn't have been that lopsided, I don't think.
Didn't think so. Didn't think that it should have been that bad.
Yeah, but that's how it turned out. I have a question for you. Given these 2 losers of the games, the Jaguars and the Giants, both of these teams overachieved from what we thought they would. Maybe first, which coach, Doug Peterson or Brian Daboll, did a better job this year? And then second, which of these 2 teams will be better next year?
Ooh. So, well, I think Jacksonville making the playoffs was, I don't think, expected, especially having to win so many games at the end of the season to get in. Man, they're both pretty long shots though to make it. I don't know. It just seems like Jacksonville's always been such a mess that it's hard to vote against Peterson then, like actually getting Jacksonville into the playoffs. But the same, I could see be easy to pick the other side too, because it's like basically the same scenario with the Giants having been a mess for quite a while now too. But I would say I think for the long-term prospects, you still have to go with which team has the better quarterback as to what the expectation would be for future seasons. And it seems like Trevor Lawrence has to be considered like the real deal at quarterback. Like, he seems legit. He's got the ability. I don't know that the Giants really know that Daniel Jones is actually a guy they want to, hang on to for a long term. Is that how you see it, or do you see it a different way?
I see it Well, I think Brian Dable's probably going to be coach of the year, but I think that's because the narrative started early with Dable, because the Giants started out strong and then they were able to kind of weather this storm in the middle and then come back. But they finished 9-7-1 compared to the Jaguars 9-8. The Jaguars were in a tougher conference, if not maybe not a tougher division, but they were in a tougher conference than the Giants. I think also the Jaguars were actually coming off back-to-back seasons where they had the #1 overall draft pick. The Giants were just kind of conventionally bad. But I guess you could say, well, the Jaguars were able to get top draft picks the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So they got, Trevor Lawrence being one of them. Travis Etienne, the running back, was gone all last year. He's back this year. So I guess like you said, the quarterback situation is much better there. The running back situation is also much better there for next year too, because Saquon was in his last year of his contract, and so he's going to want to get paid more. Daniel Jones was in his last year of the contract, and did the Giants want to get mid-level starter at best? I would guess at this point, he is maybe you could say maybe a Josh Allen light type of player at his peak. Dable, of course, had it in Buffalo, but yeah, I think Jacksonville looks much better. Partly their division is a little softer than the NFC East.
Yeah, which the Giants ended up being the third team out of that division to make the playoffs, right? Because Dallas and the Eagles were both in there. So, and then Washington wasn't bad either. So
no, Washington doesn't have a quarterback though. I think New York's problem is that they don't really have a good quarterback. They don't have any skill positions whatsoever. I think their best receivers, one of them went to the Chiefs for peanuts basically, and then I think the other one was Kenny Golladay, who sat on the bench most of the time. He didn't get along well in New York, and especially with the new management. So I think it was supposed to be a rebuilding year, but it turned out to be much better than they had imagined. I would imagine the Giants are actually going to be worse next year than they are this year, but I could see the Jaguars being better next year than they are this year. So that's another, because I think the Jaguars are young, and Calvin Ridley, he's been suspended. He's actually coming back as a receiver for them next year. So they have a lot of, Christian Kirk turned out to be actually we think we all made fun of the Christian Kirk contract, but he turned out to be a good player for the Jaguars.
Solid contributor, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think in Peterson, he did win a Super Bowl already, so maybe he is, I don't know, maybe a better coach than Dable. I don't know. Both of them were on Andy Reid's staffs at one point.
Yeah.
Dable didn't quite fit in, I don't think. Peterson was a better fit with Reid. It's interesting dynamic there, I think. But yeah, the Giants got blown out. Jaguars made it somewhat competitive most of the game. What about the Sunday games? Do we want to talk about those?
Yeah, so the early game, the betting luck shifted back to your direction in the early game, Bengals Bills.
It did. I had Cincinnati +5. It actually got up to, I think, the +6 at one point. Everybody, I guess, was going with the Bills in that game because he was at home. I guess the weather. One of the things, though, people think the snow makes it hard to pass and things like that. It doesn't really. It's wind that makes it hard to pass. Sometimes rainy conditions if it's really wet. But this was kind of a dry, kind of mild snow. It wasn't like it was blizzard conditions or anything like that. So I think
it wasn't like crazy, actively snowing. I think it mostly had snowed earlier.
Yeah, you could see it on the field.
The field, they'd mark the lines off, and it wasn't. They didn't have to keep shoveling constantly during the game like you'd seen in some other.
Yeah, no, it was kind of a pretty snowfall, if anything, and it's like, it's not like Cincinnati is warmer weather than Buffalo, but it snows in Cincinnati, so it's
not different between Miami and Buffalo. And
I guess you could say
Northern
Miami
Central.
almost beat the Bills the previous game with a third string quarterback and
That's right.
weather that was just as cold. And so like maybe the Bengals win wasn't as shocking as it was made out to be. So I thought the teams, I didn't think it would be necessarily a win. I think I had actually said though, if one team blew the other team out, I thought Cincinnati might pull Buffalo out. I don't know if I said that on the air or not, but that was one of the things that I had thought. But I thought it was going to be a close game, and it was a coin flip game. I think 2 or 3, at most, the Bills should have been favored by, and I got 5,
Yeah.
so I took it.
But yeah, I think Cincinnati really thought that they'd been maligned by the league and the situation around the previous game, that maybe this game should have been played at a neutral site, or could have even been played in Cincinnati had that previous game been finished. So they seem to really take it personally, I think.
Yeah, they even took the
Right.
idea that the game in Atlanta was being the idea that the Bills Chiefs game was being sold, but they were also selling tickets for a potential Bengals Jaguars home AFC Championship game. So it's just like, I don't know if they really thought this was something the NFL was trying to do to screw them, or
Yeah.
whether they just kind of used it as kind of pretend. It seems to me like they genuinely believed it. I don't know how bright they are on the Cincinnati team, but they were able to
Yeah.
take a misconception and really
Run with it.
run with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that
You
one,
had the over in that
yeah,
game.
the low scoring aside from the Bills is really what surprised me. Is I thought it would be a high scoring game, that both teams would be putting decent numbers up. I thought maybe even the Bengals number would be a little higher than it was too. So yeah, the over under was 48, final score 27-10. So yeah, only to 37. So I would have needed 2 touchdowns to get up there.
Yeah, yeah, and this is one of those games where everybody they say the Bengals were really dominant and things like that. Offensively, they had a good running day, which was a big reason why they won. But the score, it was the same number of points the Chiefs scored when Mahomes was hobbling around.
Right.
And
a backup played a section of that game. Right.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I am a little less impressed, partly because I thought the Bengals had a really good shot at winning, and I thought the Bills were trending downward, other than the Hamlin injury, which may have been like an inspiration, but it was probably just one injury, too many even added, like it was just another one of the kind of snowballing injuries that the Buffalo defense had to deal with. So, and Allen hasn't been the same this year. Maybe that's because Dable's gone. He's reverted back to older or younger Josh Allen.
Maybe a previous Josh Allen.
And Allen may have been hurt as well, because he hurt his elbow in that, was it against Minnesota?
Well, that was quite a while ago, yeah.
But he may have had elbow issues the second half of the season, which could explain some of his issues. But yeah, that was a Bengals win. So the Bengals are going to play the Chiefs, not at a neutral site, but in Kansas City, for the AFC Championship. Do you want to talk about the game that will decide who the Eagles' opponent in the NFC Championship?
Absolutely.
Another one that you got right and I got wrong.
Probably the ugliest of the game, so I would guess. Is that what, or not?
The ugliest, I'd say the ugliest on the part of both teams, like where both teams didn't play that well. So I think you might say the ugliest would have been the Eagles Giants, because the Giants just got blown out.
Yeah.
Or maybe even the Bengals Bills, because the Bills looked awful. So like, I think neither of the. I guess you might frame the Cowboys Niners game as a defensive struggle, but it seemed just to be more ineptitude, especially on the part of Dallas.
Yeah.
And then really great defensive work to me. I don't know. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, there were a couple, especially late in the game, odd decisions that Dallas made, especially Dak Prescott made. Uh, like the fourth down play, and then whatever that final attempt was.
I don't know what that was either. Was Zeke Elliott as the center?
I don't even know what they were trying to do, or who was eligible, or what. You know, I just had no idea what they're even trying. I don't see how that's supposed to be successful because
I think they just thought, well, if we have like instead of having linemen, we'll make everybody who's on the line and not on the line be a like a person who can carry the ball and lateral the ball. So like
yeah,
they made the first pass and they thought, okay, he can lateral, even though Zeke isn't the eligible receiver, you can lateral back to him maybe
yeah,
on that first play. But of course, Elliott was pushed over
it's
in
trucked. Yeah,
unceremonious fashion, and the guy was and CeeDee Lamb, whoever would cut the ball or almost cut. Did he even catch the ball? I think he caught it.
yeah, he caught it, but he was immediately met by one defensive player. There were two more that were nearby that could have also delivered a hit, I think, but it was just so fast that well, I mean, yeah, because Prescott had to get rid of the ball quickly
Mm-hmm.
because Zeke was overrun so fast. Yeah, it was just an ugly play all around.
You could blame Dalton Schultz on the previous play because he had an easy catch that would have gotten like them 20 yards closer. So they could have just thrown a conventional Hail Mary probably from the 40, like a 60-yard throw. But
Yeah,
instead they're like back at the 20 almost. So they would have had to get 80 yards. Like, did you see that catch that Schultz didn't make? Like it was on the sideline, but he only had 1 foot in bounds for some reason. He didn't drag his second foot or
yeah.
step down his second foot. He just lifted it up. It just seemed.
I think maybe he thought the foot was the back foot was down before he lifted it to finish the catch. Maybe I don't know.
But it seems like that's something you really want to make sure of. You want to
Yeah,
get those feet down, chop them or whatever, drag. Yeah, it was a bad play. But
yeah,
yeah. Do you think here I think we saw Prescott kind of turn back. Like Prescott is either really, really good or really bad, and this is one of his really bad games. He's very
yeah.
inconsistent. So like but Dallas is kind of saddled with him for the next who knows how many years.
Right.
Um, do you think? But Brock Purdy wasn't terribly impressive this game either. This is probably his worst game as a starter.
Yeah.
What do you think of Purdy here? He didn't do terribly, but the offense wasn't what it had once been.
Yeah. Well, he was at least competent anyway. He still threw for over 200 yards. And wasn't responsible for any turnovers again, which is really, I think, all you can, really expect from it. I mean, not really expect, but really ask of him to do. And he's now 7-0 as a starter. When you'd expect him to have probably not even made a passing attempt in the season as a third string quarterback to begin the season. So I mean, everything's really just bonus. However far he takes them is a huge bonus for him and for San Francisco. I mean, I think he was fine. 1929 for 214 yards. QBR of 53.1, which was actually higher than Dak Prescott's QBR for the game, 51.5.
Yeah, but Prescott had 2 picks.
Yeah. He threw a touchdown.
Quarterback rating, it was his passer rating was 87.4. So not terrible, but like I guess he didn't have much help on the running game. As a team, they only averaged 3.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Caffrey was at 3.5. Samuel didn't really have much going on the ground either. Even in the air, McCaffrey only averaged 3.7 yards of receptions. Like this is probably McCaffrey's worst game. At least you could say his worst game since his debut. But I think in his debut he actually did better than because he was rattling off some big yardage against the Chiefs a couple of times. In this game, his long carry was 8 yards. His long reception was 8 yards. So he was not the McCaffrey
No.
that we've become accustomed to on the 49ers. So
Yeah, but until the touchdown drive, that was a little past that was nearly the end of the third quarter. It was a 9-9 game for let's see, what was that? The score actually was after the end of the third quarter. So, it was 9-9 at the end of the third. Is that an impressive score?
No, it is not. Well, I guess we had part of it was it would have been 10-9 Dallas, if not for some continued adventures in place kicking from Brett Maher. He didn't miss it outright this time. His extra point attempt was blocked, but
Yeah,
he was still I don't know. Do you think he has a job with the Cowboys next year?
it's going to be tough to say that he does have it locked down by any means. That's just too many misses. I'm sure his confidence has to be pretty shaken. I wouldn't expect him to be on the roster next year. What do you think?
I don't know. Probably not. I think this seems to be one of those things where I think McCarthy's probably going to keep his job.
Yeah.
And Dak has to be there. Tony Pollard's a free agent, but he broke his ankle, I think, in that game. It's hard to say what the Cowboys can do to get better next year, short of kind of trading Prescott or like rebuilding and trying to radically get better over the next 3 or 4 years. So I think maybe all they can do is say, "Oh, we'll get rid of Maher." That'll make some people happy. I think they're this was Dallas's best chance, I think, for a while to kind of get back to the Super Bowl, and I don't know if they have another run in them the next year or two.
Yeah, it's always been entertaining to watch them not succeed.
Yeah. They're always fun to root against. Partly it's Jerry Jones's ego and just the idea that they're so popular for some reason. They haven't been good really for 30 years.
Actually, or do they just say they are? Is it one of those bluster things that
it's a little like the Raiders somehow are very, very popular? I think the Raiders have more of an identity than, I don't know, maybe the Cowboys have this kind of swagger about them. The Raiders have that kind of cheating and bad boy effect.
Right.
But I think of the teams, I think there are 4 teams in the NFL really that are national brands for some reason. And I think maybe the Patriots have become that way when Brady was there, but I think since Brady left, they aren't. I think it's the Packers, the Steelers, the Raiders, and the Cowboys. And none of those teams have won a championship in the last 10 years. Maybe you could say, I think Green Bay and Pittsburgh in the last 15 years each won a Super Bowl, but it's been a while. But I think, would you say those are nationally the 4 most popular teams? That kind of regardless who plays for them, they're big.
Yeah. It's always the international, at least the national to international sort of big, biggest cities. But except LA, I guess, right? Not LA.
You won't see you don't see I'd be more surprised if I saw a New York Giants jersey in Kansas City than I would be a Packers jersey or a Steelers jersey.
Yeah.
In Cowboys and Raiders, I wouldn't be out of, I don't know.
It wouldn't be crazy at all to see that, yeah.
And I think even up here in Pennsylvania, it's mostly Steelers and Eagles, a little bit of Bills up north and some Ravens. but you'll see Cowboys stuff. You'll see Packers stuff sometimes.
See much Washington stuff?
A little bit. That's more down in Maryland, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Washington hasn't been very good lately.
Right.
So the Ravens have kind of supplanted them, and the Steelers have been not great, but consistently pretty good. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. But those yeah, it's I don't think yeah, so the Cowboys losing, it doesn't seem to affect them that much. They're still very popular.
Yeah. And Mar is in the final year of his contract. It was just a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So he's an unrestricted free agent next year.
I think the Cowboys are also very popular to hate, but also part of it is because their big rivals are on the East Coast too. So maybe that's part of it. It's New York and Philadelphia and Washington are their biggest rivals. So those are big cities in the East.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, like in the KC area, there are a lot of like displaced people from like Minnesota and Wisconsin. So there are a lot of Packers fans in KC. Seems that way anyway. St. Louis.
It's a little bit like in Kansas City, like for some reason, like if you go to the Royals games, like there's these random people that are Yankees fans from like random, Kansas town or something like that, where you just want to say like, you must be the worst people because you just latch on to whatever national team is the most popular.
Even though there's a local team that is nearby that the national one. That's what I find that weird.
Yeah, I don't begrudge anybody who's the fan of their local team, but I think if they pick, I don't care for the bandwagon fans of rando teams that when there is one when there's a major team in the region. So it doesn't.
Do you think it's like just a general like anti-local thing where it's like if they traveled somewhere, they would still go to just the chain restaurants that are in the same area?
I think it's the people who think that they're better than their local counterparts.
Yeah.
It's like there's a strange smugness, I think, about a like rural Kansas Yankees fan that has no connection to New York. It's not like their dad came from New York City and settled there or something.
But maybe they're from Manhattan, Kansas.
Manhattan, Kansas. Yeah, a little apple. That would make sense. Like you could say, well, like, you're in Kansas, we'll pick the Royals, even the Cardinals, because that has a historic kind of tie to the area with the Rockies or whatever. There's some like, I don't like Cardinals fans in particular, but because I think they're also kind of a smugness about them, but
they are objectively terrible, Mike. I don't think you don't need to guess.
But at least it makes sense why you might be a Cardinals fan. You can watch their games on TV. They're, a pretty good team usually, and they're at least somewhat local.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, I don't understand. Like even around like here, you'll see like houses that are like diehard Cowboys. How like what like. Where do they? Yeah, it doesn't make it makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
and especially like you could say, well, I like like the Cowboys. Yeah, it's been 30 years since they've had anybody. It's like Troy Aikman retired. Who knows when, but like 1999 probably.
Yeah,
and it's just strange. I don't understand it. It's a little like you like people who pick college basketball teams or things like that.
Didn't go to school.
Well, they don't go to school, or like they don't have a geographical connection. Like, they're big Duke basketball fans or something, which is, yeah. There's no, I don't think there's there's no reason anyone should like Duke who didn't go to Duke or is from North Carolina. I don't think, but
yeah, that's fair. I know. Yeah, here in KC, there are an enormous number of KU fans that didn't go to KU.
But at least they're in Kansas or near, like.
And there's no pro team, so like I sort of get it, but it seems weird to be that diehard of a fan to a school that you didn't pay any money to. Like that's part of like what I always thought was like the biggest part of it is like you're physically tied to it in some way because of like how much money it costs you to go there, right?
I guess your tax dollars in the state of Kansas went to the university. Some of like fewer and fewer each year because of the conservative legislature. But yeah, I don't know. Speaking of Cardinals fans, do we want to take a small break and talk about?
We're gonna finish the bets on the last game.
We'll finish the bets on the last game. Okay.
Go through it, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So I had San Francisco -4. That worked out for me. San Francisco won by a touchdown.
It won 19-12. It was only a total of 31. I had them going over 46.5 because I thought both teams had pretty good offenses, and I thought the Niners had a good defense, but one that was maybe a little bit overhyped. They could give up a lot of points to teams that had good offenses. They gave up a lot of points to the Chiefs. They gave a lot of points to the Raiders. And Dallas has a pretty good offense, but I don't know. Dallas played poorly. Maybe San Francisco would have tried to score more had Dallas been a little more threatening.
Yeah,
they might have picked up the pace, but it was an easy under.
Yeah,
I went away. I usually pick unders. That's my. I like to pick more unders than overs, but
yeah, I was pretty surprised.
I don't know if that actually happened this year because I think a lot of the games went under early, and so I think they made this artificially kind of lowered the number.
And then the wild card round, most of the games hit the over.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you were thinking of the recency bias of the wild card round and went for the over there.
Could be also. Did any of the games the Giants they all hit under, I think, because I think 38-7 was 45, so that's I think they were all under.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think they were all under.
Yeah.
So yeah, so last week we both went 2-2. This week you were 1-3 and I was 3-1. So right now for our phase 2 betting, now you're at 3-5 minus 200, 5-3 plus 200. So together we're again
even.
Yeah.
You've taken a commanding lead so far. I need to try to catch up this week.
This is the largest lead I've had in the total of us doing this competition at any point.
You're well over 500.
Yes.
Do we want to take a brief break from football and talk about baseball?
Now let's talk about baseball for a little bit. Yes.
Do we want to get the Royals information out of the way before we talk about the Hall of Fame? So the Royals have been busy on the trading block, and they've signed maybe if this were 2016, they signed what would be a really promising free agent, but it's 2023, so it's probably somebody whose best years are behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just run through them quickly. So we signed Aroldis Chapman, the Cuban flamethrower, who I think has the record fastest pitch of all time, 105 point something miles per hour.
Yeah.
And that was about 10 years ago, at least, though. And I think he is 35 or something like that now. And then they also traded two of their, I guess, top defensive players, we might say, at least when they're healthy. Michael A. Taylor, as he goes by, right? Does he go by Michael A?
Michael A. Taylor, yeah.
Taylor, as opposed, I don't. It's like, I'm not quite sure. Vivica A. Fox, I don't know why. Michael J. Fox, I guess there are many other Michael Taylors out there.
Yeah.
But he was traded, I believe, to the Blue Jays, and we got a couple of relievers back for him, and then we also traded Raul Adalberto Mondesi, the once heralded prospect who actually made an appearance in the 2015 World Series made an appearance in the 2015 World Series against the Blue Jays. Against the Mets. Also played against the Blue Jays in the ALCS that year, I think.
Yeah.
And he was traded to the Red Sox for another reliever. So
Michael Ochoa went to the Twins, by the way. Yeah.
Who was it? Michael Ochoa went to the Twins. I knew he went up north. I forgot he went up north, but I think Minneapolis is farther north maybe than Toronto is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but a divisional trade, which doesn't always happen that often, at least anyway. Yeah. So Mondesi made his debut, right, in the World Series. Wasn't he like the first player to have his first at bat in a World Series game? Wasn't that the
Yeah, I think so. I think he was the first player, to make his debut in the World Series. I think maybe it might have been a pinch runner. Was he a pinch runner? He had an at bat before he had any at bats in the regular season.
Yeah.
He might have been a pinch runner before he had an at bat.
Maybe.
But
to make it,
that was when the Royals were extra speedy and they had Terrence Gore and also
well, and that was the series where they were worried that Ben Zobrist's wife was going to go into labor, and so they had to keep an extra position player on the roster because if Zobrist's wife went into labor, then he was going to maybe miss a game even, and so they wanted to have somebody else that could play defensively in all of the places that Zobrist can play, which was everything. So led to that debut anyway. That was interesting strategy from the Royals at that time. But yeah, many injuries.
Yeah, he can never stay healthy.
It seemed like they've tried to get away from hoping that he's going to be healthy enough to play a whole season. Now we don't have to worry about that anymore. He's no longer on the team, but they traded him for, I believe, an injured player who missed all of last season with back injuries. So
I think the Red Sox also
but there's no expectation for the new player, right? But if he's healthy, great. If he's not, who is he? I don't remember his name. No, wait, it was also Taylor, right?
Taylor, somebody Taylor.
Taylor, and then they immediately got another guy back named Taylor.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox had an injury at shortstop this year, so they wanted somebody who could maybe fill in, but maybe for 50 games. I'm not sure how many. But maybe the injury bug will stop biting Mondesi in Boston, and maybe he'll make a good career turnaround. And I wish the best for him, but it's hard to. I guess it's good that the Royals got at least something for, I think, Taylor and Mondesi. They didn't really figure into the future plans.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the future plans might be a little different from their previous philosophy in that they picked up Aroldis Chapman, who's had a bit of a checkered past, both on off the field at least.
And maybe even a bit on the field. I think he nearly started a brawl.
Yeah.
Last season with some high heat with the Rays.
Yeah, and he didn't. I guess he was kept off the Yankees postseason roster because he skipped a workout or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Didn't he also have like a domestic issue or something?
Yeah, that was back when he was with the Cubs, I think, in the Chicago area. Yes, he did. But yeah, that's always been. I think this was the big departure from the old Dayton Moore era in Kansas City, was that they would only pursue players that have high character, and Aroldis Chapman doesn't really fit into that, whatever shiny box that they think it is, or the Dayton Moore thought it was. That was a necessity to be part of the roster. It seems like now, maybe they're willing to take a chance on somebody that they're not going to risk a whole lot of money on. If he pans out, that's great. If he doesn't, it's not that big of a deal to pay a relief pitcher, $3.5 million for a season.
No, well, he was making 16 million, 18 million last year, so it's salaries are much out of control, you might say, to a regular person, but that's for a going rate of a potential lockdown reliever, that's very, very cheap. So
potentially
if he can regain his form.
We don't know what their plans are or how he's going to play in spring training. He could end up being the closer on the team, and that would be a very reasonable price for a closer, should he be able to get to that level.
Yeah. Speaking of Chapman as a closer, Chapman has, I believe, 315, excuse me, career saves. He ranks, I think, in the top 25 all time.
Not bad.
No, not bad. So he has 315. If he maybe becomes the closer, you could say that he gets about 30 saves this year. If he got 30 saves, so at 300, okay, I'll say this: at 315 saves, Chapman has more saves in his career than which two Hall of Fame closers?
Ooh. Is that, yeah, it's like, is Smoltz on there then? Because he spent half his career as a starter. Would he be?
I don't.
Included him or
Smoltz
not?
doesn't have it. Smoltz doesn't have as many, but I'd say he was probably equal starting relieving.
Yeah.
Kind of like Eckersley.
But you didn't count him in this.
I didn't count Smoltz. No.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't count Hoyt Wilhelm either. He was for a long time the only reliever, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Hall of Fame. So I would assume Mariano has quite a few more.
Yeah.
Than that.
Wilhelm has 228 saves.
Yeah.
Mariano Rivera is the career leader. He has 652.
Yeah.
There are of the 300 save club, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 current Hall of Famers.
Wow. Okay.
One is Rivera and one is Dennis Eckersley, who I mentioned.
Yeah.
Eckersley is 390.
Yeah, I assume Lee Smith, I think, is up there.
Lee Smith is 478.
Yeah, because he was the record holder. Was man, I don't yeah, those are.
I'll give you a hint. Let's see. One of them is most famous probably for his work with the Cardinals, and one is most famous for his work with the Yankees.
Man, I'm like just drawing blanks on these guys. Okay.
Both of them got their last save in the 80s, 1988 it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, I'm even off from that. Okay. No, I'm not gonna come up with it.
Okay. Bruce Sutter. He has 300 saves exactly. And
Okay.
then Goose Gossage.
Okay. That makes sense.
Famous for his duels with George Brett, especially.
Yeah.
In the playoffs. Usually in the famous Pine Tar incident.
Right.
Off Goose Gossage. So yeah, Chapman is the only active. No, wait, he's third among active saves players. Craig Kimbrell and Kenley Jansen have more.
Well, I didn't know Kenley Jansen was that high. That's surprising.
Jansen is 391.
Wow.
Craig Kimbrell is 394.
Yeah. I guess it pays to, be a closer for a team that's winning like 100+ games every year with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
It's interesting. I think it's interesting the players that are like the Hall of Fame players that are on the list versus ones that aren't. I think for the relief pitchers, it's strange because number of saves isn't that important. But I think Bruce Sutter was on there, but I think Dan Quisenberry didn't have a Cy Young award, but
yeah,
but he finished like top 5 in the Cy Young like 4 times, and
yeah,
at his peak he was really high. But like Sutter's on there, but like Jeff Reardon, who played basically the same time as Sutter, has 367 saves for the Expos, but he's not on the list. His ERA is 3.16. Sutter's is career ERA is 2.83, but like it's not, I don't think that's a big difference. I don't know. It just seems strange. Why Suter is a strange one to me.
Yeah.
Gossage, I think, at least played for the Yankees and some of the big teams.
But that would have been before they were. That was in that era where they weren't that great, though, right?
He played for them in the 70s.
Okay.
So when they went to the World Series a couple of times.
Okay. Yeah. So did either of them win a title?
Yes. Gossage won in 78. Gossage won in 78, and
Because that used to always be like one of the big deals that seemingly some of the Hall of Fame voters made into a big deal. Is that
Suter won in 82 with the Cardinals.
So they did both get titles.
He won a Cy Young Award in 79, 4 times Relief Man of the Year. Gossage was
Relief Man of the Year.
3 times, just 1 year, 1 Relief Man of the Year, but 3 times Save Leader, champion, played for the Yankees, so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to Quisenberry, Quisenberry won the World Series with the Royals 85, 5 times Rolaids Relief Man of the Year, 5 times Save Leader. I don't think there's a big difference. Lower ERA, fewer saves, but a better win-loss record. I think he also has the record for most 2 and 3 inning saves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's. I was reading. There was an article on Royals Review about Quisenberry, but he also died fairly young, so he can't advocate for himself.
Yeah, that does make it tougher.
Anyway, I think closers are a little bit like kickers in football. They're specialists, but I don't think they're not. It's like, they aren't closers because they're the best pitchers on the team. Well,
and now it's more of like aging starters have a new life to their career if they move to the bullpen. So that's it's not like you start out as a relief pitcher. That's like where you are relegated once you're no longer able to be a starter anymore. It seems to be the path.
Yeah, it seems like the Rivera one is maybe an outlier because he was so good for so long.
Yeah.
They kind of tried to make him a starter at one point, but his stats are just off the charts.
Mm-hmm. And now it's basically only throwing like 1 pitch.
ERA, yeah.
So that's what's even more impressive about Rivera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he only led the league in saves 3 times.
Yeah,
but he had so many good years.
Part of that was because some of those Yankees teams were winning by so many runs that the closer wasn't really necessary.
Yeah, they were such a good team. They won, 75% of their games sometimes. So it was.
Yeah.
And he's also, I guess, remembered for failing to like in a couple of the World Series, he lost against the Marlins maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think he blew a save at the end and stuff. So but he was in a lot of big games.
Mm-hmm.
World Series MVP 1999.
Yeah.
5-time world champion. Yeah.
But since we were talking about Hall of Fame, the announcement today came that Scott Rowland is joining the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And I believe he was the only member elected, and some other players similar to him just barely missed the cut, like Todd Helton. Well, that was kind of interesting anyway, because they weren't all that different of player. But one got in and the other one didn't. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was strange. Helton, I guess, has a reputation, and the advanced stats seem to indicate that he was a great defensive player. Offensively, I don't think he was that spectacular. He was around for a long time, but yeah, Rowland just barely made it. He had 76.3% of the vote. You need 75% of the vote by the baseball writers. They needed 292 votes to be elected. He got 297. Todd Helton got 281, and so he was like 72 point something percent. I guess Helton is hurt largely because he played in Colorado, and nobody knows what he would have been outside of Colorado. I guess he only played for Colorado. Some of the other players, I guess, did Dante Bichette make the Hall of Fame?
I don't think so.
Or Larry Walker did, right?
I think he did make it, yeah, but he didn't play entirely, and he was good in other places besides Colorado too, because he played for
Montreal earlier, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he may have played for somewhere after that too.
He played in St. Louis for a very brief period.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he won a championship with St. Louis later.
He lost in 04, I think. 05. I don't think he won.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think. They lost, so he lost in the playoffs twice with St. Louis.
Okay.
The Red Sox in the World Series and in the NLCS one time the next year. So he never won a World Championship, but he did have an MVP one year, 97. So I guess that's what maybe tipped it, and also that he did play elsewhere. Helton was a very strong player, but yeah, he only played in Colorado, I guess.
Yeah, so all of his numbers may have been inflated a bit from having gotten to play in Colorado.
At least the counting stats, they do have the WAR and like advanced stats are park specific, but I think still it's hard to measure Colorado.
Yeah.
And I guess he had 10 fewer WAR than Roland had. He had 61.8. I think Roland had 71.
Oh wow.
WAR.
Oh, I didn't know it was that different. Yeah, I thought they would be closer.
Roland has 22 of his WAR were defensive.
Wow.
So he was a great defensive shortstop according to the advanced stats. And I guess he won a lot of gold gloves too, the eye test. But I never thought of him I thought he was a very good player, but I never thought of him as a great player, even on those Cardinals teams. But, he's overshadowed by Pujols and people like that usually.
Yeah, because didn't he start with Philly?
He started with Philly. He played for the Phillies for 6 or 7 years. He was rookie of the year, so that probably gave him some.
Yeah, that's what I always think of him as. That I don't even remember him playing for St. Louis.
The highest, he got 4th place in the MVP voting one year. That's the only time he was in the top 10 in the MVP voting. So he was never considered to be one of the great players of his own era, I don't think. So I think he won for a consistency and longevity. And
wasn't a former Royal Carlos Beltran on the list this year?
Yeah, Beltran was on the list. He finished with 46.5% of the vote, 181. He was 6th on the list. So it was Roland who made it. Helton at 72%. Billy Wagner, the closer, we didn't mention him. He was decent, but he was a good player. But again, he's a closer for the Astros. Andrew Jones, Gary Sheffield were in the 50s. Then Beltran was 46.5, tied with Jeff Kent, who was in his final year on the ballot. Was Kent supposedly a steroid guy, or was he just a guy that everybody hated because he was supposed to be a big jerk?
Yeah, I think he wasn't he the player that was injured one time when he fell while washing his truck or something like that, or was it the story? But he actually fell off a motorcycle, and that was what he was trying to cover up the fact that he had fallen off his motorcycle, because his contract actually forbade him from riding a motorcycle.
Yeah,
so
that's
the story was that he'd was washing his truck and fell which is maybe not quite as funny as the there was a Colorado shortstop that had a really good start to his career, and then he had an injury, like he fell down the stairs or something, and
I don't remember.
And the story was that he just said that he fell down the stairs, but it was like he'd come back from a hunting trip with Todd Helton, actually, I think, and fell down the stairs while carrying all of the meat from the trip or something. Was what they made the rookie carry in all of the meat, apparently, and that was what led to the injury from the hunting trip.
Yeah, I think people just didn't like Jeff Kent. His stats aren't as good either, but from what I saw, he I don't see maybe he was involved. He was on the Barry Bonds team at the same time, so maybe he was just guilty by association.
Could be.
But I know that he was not a popular player among his peers, maybe among the writers either, a little bit like Bonds. But yeah, so he's in his last 10th year. So Alex Rodriguez had 35.7, Manny Ramirez 33.2, Omar Vizquel, Andy Pettit, Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, Mark Burley, K-Rod, Torrey Hunter rounded off the other people that didn't drop off the ballot. So yeah, I don't know if I would have voted for any of these players.
Yeah.
For the Hall of Fame. Maybe Beltran.
Yeah.
Or I would say, well, A-Rod. Alex Rodriguez deserves to be, even though he's a jerk and he was a steroid user, but everybody was. I think Manny Ramirez too, in the same reason. He was a colorful and dynamic player when he played. So Gary Sheffield maybe as well.
Yeah.
But Andrew Jones even, I don't know. I would have had them up with Helton, but I mean up with Helton and Roland, but
still below the threshold, you're saying?
I think so.
Yeah. So you'd have had nobody
stats
at all.
What'd you say?
You'd have had nobody in this year.
I don't think so. Roland's, well, I also Rodriguez I would have voted for before, so I would have voted for him, and maybe Manny, but Sheffield might be my third, and then maybe Roland, somewhere around there. But Roland's stats surprised me that they were as good as they were.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of quietly accumulating stats all those years, right?
Yeah, he if you look at the third baseman stats for Roland, he's top 10 among third basemen in history. So
is that right? Wow, I wouldn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, and most of the other people are already on the Hall of Fame around him, so it makes sense if I looked at it that way. So maybe I would have if I had been a voter. But he was one of those guys that never jumped out at you.
But you would have done the research ahead of time instead of just hearing the result and going really?
Yeah. If I were a member of the Baseball Writers Association, I would have taken my job a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
I would have at least given a cursory glance at Baseball Reference before.
At least. Minimally. So should we, on that note, take a cursory glance at the NFL Championship round games and make some bets?
Sure. We have the AFC Championship, the NFC Championship, both on Sunday. It's a reverse order of the Saturday-Sunday contest. Last week was the AFC first as the appetizer, followed by the main course of NFC games. Now we have it reversed. It's the NFC that is the appetizer and the AFC as the main course. Do you think that's appropriate? Do you think of the matchups, do you think the AFC matchup is heartier, more filling, and the star of the two games?
I think so. I think this is the rematch from last year's AFC Championship game. So I think people are familiar with it. I think everybody's well aware of Mahomes and Burrow, and probably less aware of Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, especially since he's brand new. So I think that seems like that's the right way to do it. Prime time is the game that everyone probably knows the most about, I suppose, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it
should be a more competitive game too. I think
both games will be competitive, or could have a very good chance of being competitive. I think they should be good games. I think these are the best four teams left. I mean, they're all the best four teams left, but I think they're the best four teams during the season. as well.
Yeah.
I think the Bills were up there at some point, but they're over the last several weeks. I think they proved that.
Yeah, I think Bills and Bengals, you might have made an argument to switch one of those two, but I think from the NFC, I think we pretty much called this result pretty early on. As soon as San Francisco started playing well, I think we pretty much expected them to be the second best team in the NFC, and
maybe even the best team in the NFC. But the game last week for the Eagles kind of put me. I was feeling a little shaky on the Eagles, but it made it a little more solid. And I actually ended up being a little more shaky on the 49ers because of the way they played against what turned out to be a not great Dallas team.
Yeah, but Dallas's defense is good though. It's not a weak defense team.
No, it's a very flashy, big play defense, I think.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons gets a lot of sacks. He's like Lawrence Taylor or Derek Thomas type of player.
Or at least they talk about it that way anyway.
Yeah. They do.
Yes.
You know how many sacks Micah Parsons had this year?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you think it's more or fewer than Chris Jones?
The way that the announcers seem to talk about it is probably it must be way more than Chris Jones.
So Parsons has 13.5 sacks this year. Jones had 15.5 sacks this year, largely from playing a kind of hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end, whereas I think Parsons has been, an edge player the whole time. So yeah, I think Chris Jones, Joey Bosa led the league in sacks, or Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa led the league in sacks this year.
One of those
Bosas, yeah, they're hard to keep track of sometimes. But he was still an All-Pro.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's a great player. But I think Nick Bosa is probably better than Micah Parsons, and Nick Bosa is probably going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. Maybe I'd say Chris Jones and Parsons might be top 3. Maybe there's somebody else that I'm forgetting. But yeah. Anyway, but the Cowboys are not playing. We have the 49ers and the Eagles. Do we want to talk about that game, what we think will happen, and our bets? We were doing something a little bit different this week than we had last week, even. Right? Just like last week, we had 4 bets over the 4 games. We're also going to make 4 bets on the game themselves. But we're going to each pick a point spread that we like, and the over/under, which side we like on each of the games. That's 4. But we're also going to have a prop bet as well, where we will wager an additional $100 for individual player props. At least that's how they turned out, individual player props this time.
So we'll each make $600 in bets this week.
Yes.
With a higher ceiling for potential wins because of the prop. But we're also not restricting bets across each other's bets. So we can make the same bet this week, or last week we actually said you had to pick the other one, or the different type of bet anyway. So
right.
So yeah, we'll have to see how this one goes between the two of us here for the competition.
It's gonna be interesting, I'm sure, and exciting. So what do we like? So the Eagles are favored by 2.5 in Philadelphia. It starts at 3 p.m. on Fox in Lincoln Financial Field. The weather is supposed to be about 37 degrees, I see on the ESPN site. The over/under is 46 in that game. So what do you like?
So I think this game is going to be more of a defensive struggle, more similar to the Dallas San Francisco game. Both teams have pretty solid defenses, and their offenses seem to do well against teams that don't have very good defenses. So, but both of these teams do have good defenses, so I think it's going to be a little lower scoring. I think that I don't want to bet against Brock Purdy, so I am going to take San Francisco plus 2.5. I think they'll win the game, but I don't know for sure. But I think they can cover the spread. I'll go with that. So San Francisco plus 2.5, and the under 46.
I like the under 2 in this game. 46. Both of the teams last week would have gotten the under 46. Even the Giants Eagles would have been 45. And of course the Cowboys Niners was way low, 31. So I like the under here as well. If you had asked me last week, maybe this is not a wise strategy, but if you had asked me last week, and if the Eagles have been favored by 2.5, I would have gone 49ers definitely. But
yeah,
I've talked myself into the Eagles, partly because I thought you'd be picking the 49ers, because I didn't want to be the same as you.
on both picks.
On both picks. And also because of the way that the teams looked last week. I thought the Eagles seemed rested and prepared, and they had a very easy game against the Giants, so I don't think they're too worn out. They also have an extra day of rest, and the 49ers are coming across the country. This will be by far the farthest road game that Purdy will have played. He's only had two. I think he's played in 7 games, won 7 out of 7, but he's only played 2 road games, and both of those games were fairly close. He won at Seattle, divisional opponent, and he won in Las Vegas, probably in front of a fairly nonpartisan crowd.
Yeah,
in Vegas. So I bet it was probably a lot of 49ers fans in the crowd. So this will be his first real
true road test.
Road game, at least. Not that Seattle's not a true test, but this is a big deal, and it's in
the pressure only gets higher as they get deeper into
Philadelphia.
The playoffs.
Yeah. Do you know who won the last time Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts matched up?
I do, because that was the Big 12 championship game, was it not, against Oklahoma?
It was no, it was. I believe it was a regular season game.
Oh,
it was in 2019, November 2019. And so it was the one season where Hurts was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma won 42-41.
Yeah.
Very close, a thriller. Hurts was 18 of 26 for 273, 3 touchdowns, a pick, also 2 rushing touchdowns for 68. Oklahoma was ahead 42-21 at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and the Cyclones almost came back. They went for 2, and they didn't make it. They would have won 43-42 had their last 2-point conversion have followed. Purdy was 19 of 30, 280 yards, 5 touchdown passes that game. So in college, at least, so this might bode well for you. Iowa State was not as talented as Oklahoma.
They were a defensive minded team, though. Like, they had a pretty good defense.
But they still have 42.
Yeah.
The roster around Hurts was a lot better.
That finished runner up in the Heisman, though, too. But I think didn't Hurts finish second?
Hurts was top. He was top. Yeah, he was a finalist. I don't remember what exactly he was, but yeah, it was right. It was the year after Kyler Murray had won, and the year after, which was the year after Baker Mayfield had won straight. So it was almost 3 straight quarterbacks from Oklahoma. But so Hurts had a more highly recruited and probably we would say talented team around him, but maybe not in coaching. It may have been more of a evenly matched game, and so in this game I would say that the rosters are going to be a lot closer in quality. So maybe maybe if I had thought about that before, I would have gone 49ers, but I think this is, but Purdy would have played big college games before. He had actually beaten Oklahoma, I think, before or after. Iowa State won at least a couple of times against Oklahoma.
I think so. I think they did beat Oklahoma.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna say I think it's Philadelphia. I think they have. I don't know. I'm predicting them to win. So 2.5 isn't that many points. So
yeah,
let's go Philadelphia.
So how about the prop bets for this one?
Prop bets, yeah. So you want to talk about we ended up taking prop bets. Both of us took a prop bet on the quarterbacks.
Yes.
The quarterback we thought would win the game.
Oh, I had passing yards. Yeah.
You had passing yards. I had rushing yards for Hurts.
Yeah. So I took sticking with my guy, my Iowa State guy, Purdy. There's a prop bet for 275 plus passing yards is a plus 320 bet. So $100 bet pays out $320. That's gonna be my prop bet pick.
Okay. Mine was very similar in payout. Mine was plus $300 after 100. Mine involved rushing, and that was Jalen Hurts would have 70 or more rushing yards, which he has done quite a bit during the season. So more than half, I think almost half the time this season he has there. So it's a payoff of 3-1 for something I think that happens about 50-50. So in playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. But if Hurts' shoulder is fine, he might, pardon the pun, shoulder more of the rushing load, because I think he is their best running back in a lot of games, and maybe against a tough defense like the 49ers. Gainwell and Sanders and Boston Scott might not make as much headway on the ground as Hurts would. So and he might have some scrambles in him and things like that. So I think Hurts still to me is more of a running quarterback than a passing quarterback. So I like Hurts at plus 300. So if we both hit those, you'll be slightly in the lead.
Yes, that's right. $20 if we both succeed. Yes, and yeah. So Purdy had what was it, 220 yards passing in a bad game against Dallas. So it's not that big of a stretch to go to 275, because I'm sure they're going to have to score at some point. They're going to have to put some points up. I think they're going to be throwing it a bit too. So hopefully,
so Purdy had 214 yards last week.
14. Yeah.
But I think they probably might have to score more points against Philadelphia, so they might be in more of a passing mode. And McCaffrey and Debo, they didn't have a lot of yards compared to some of their weeks. So
maybe some of those rushing yards will be turned into short passes, like that are used like rushes, and that's kind of what I'm betting on in this one.
Yeah, I think those both seem logical. Of course, I think mine is logical, but I think yours is probably as well. Do we want to move on to the AFC, the game I think we're most interested in seeing?
Right. Yeah.
So this is the 5th consecutive AFC Championship game hosted by the Chiefs, which is a record. I think they're the only team that had actually hosted it 4 times in a row.
Right.
As well, there have been teams that have played in it 4 and 5 times in a row. I think the Patriots when Tom Brady and Bill Belichick were running things like in the mid 2005, 2015 era, something like that, made 8 straight championships.
Yeah.
But
I think Andy Reid's Eagles hosted 4. Did they not?
Hosted 4. I think did they host all 4?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe they did.
I think it was Andy Reid was the only one to host 4. And he's done it now twice.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
He's also the first team to win at least 10 playoff games for 2 teams.
Yeah.
So he's done that.
Bolstering his future Hall of Fame odds, right?
I think the Raiders in the 70s also made 5 AFC Championship games. Probably back when like John Madden and Tom Flores and people like that were the coach. I think it was Ken Stabler was the quarterback back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that I don't know if it technically would have been lost if the game had been in Atlanta, because technically the Chiefs were the 1 seed, so they would still be the home team. But maybe it's semantics kind of at that point. But I'm kind of glad the game's at Arrowhead, even if I think the Bengals will be a tougher test, given the
Yeah.
way the Bengals are playing now versus the way the Bills had been playing.
Hmm.
Although neither I don't think is a great matchup for the Chiefs. Both of those teams are teams that have beaten the Chiefs recently, and if you listen to the national talk shows, this idea that Burrow is 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes, but it's like they don't play against each other. It's a
Right.
Chiefs offense versus the Bengals defense, and Bengals offense Chiefs defense. And even so, the games have only been decided by a field goal, so they've been coin flip games, all three of them.
Yeah.
So it's I don't see the again, I'm not that person who thinks Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback ever simply because his team has won more games than Peyton Manning's teams or whatever. I think Manning was a better quarterback than Brady in most circumstances. If he had played for the Patriots, I'm sure he would have done very well as well. So
Yeah.
it's
For
one of
sure.
those.
So now, did Mahomes' ankle factor into how you bet on this game?
It didn't exactly factor into how I bet. I think it made me a little more comfortable with my bet because the spread is it started out the Chiefs were favored by 1 when the line opened. I think before the weekend, I think the idea was that if the Chiefs were playing the Bengals, it would have been like 3 points or something like that at home. Then it moved down to 1, and then there were a lot of Cincinnati bettors at first. So I think, and then at one point, the line moved all the way down to Chiefs plus 2.5. The Bengals were favored by 2.5 points. I think that has changed back. Now it's just Chiefs plus 1.5.
Yep.
If that's still is that still the line on
I believe
ESPN?
so.
So
Minus 1.5.
since Cincinnati minus 1.5, I still think the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's going to be one of those things where Mahomes is tired of hearing the idea that Joe Burrow is kind of has his number.
Yeah.
And the Bengals have been pretty cocky, calling Arrowhead Burrowhead. Have you heard that phrase bandied about? So I think the Chiefs will really be coming to play. They're underdogs.
What did he call it?
Burrowhead.
Burrowhead.
Because he's won there one time apparently, and that makes him the king of the stadium.
Okay, all right.
They won an overtime game, therefore he really dominated. But I guess Mahomes, the Chiefs were way ahead, and they kind of fell apart in the second half of the AFC Championship last year. They fell apart in the second half of the first game they played against the Bengals in Cincinnati, and then they fell apart, I think, in the second half of this year's game when it looked like the Chiefs were in command of the game, then maybe going up by 2 scores, but then Kelsey fumbled it in Bengals territory, and that changed the outcome. So but 3 points, those are games that are very close. Yeah. I think the Chiefs are due. I also think the Chiefs will be upset that the Bengals are having so much swagger, and the Chiefs are actually home underdogs to the Bengals. And
the underdogs then, that's all.
And Mahomes is hurt, but I think he's going to have a good game anyway, with a high ankle sprain. So I'm betting on the Chiefs plus 1.5 here. So because I think the Chiefs will win. How about you?
This is one of those scenarios where it's hard to split apart the wanting, like, the your mind about what you want to bet on and betting with your team that it actually is your team. Like, I've grown up here in Kansas City, so I can't bet against the Chiefs. I have to go Chiefs plus 1.5 also.
Yeah, I can't either. And it's like in some ways,
I think even if I wasn't from Kansas City, I'd still have a hard time finding it. Betting against them seems like a silly thing too. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I think in general my bets are coin flips.
Yeah,
and I haven't really gotten much better than a coin, and I think just betting on the Chiefs every time is also pretty much a coin flip, because I think you have a good chance, at least a 50-50 chance. So like it doesn't really matter who if I pick one side all the time or not. So that's how I'm talking myself into it. I think the Chiefs are.
Well, and maybe the most important part of this is that the Chiefs have been pretty terrible at covering the spread during the season, but they've not really struggled to win games as they ended with the number one seed. And the line is so close that only 1.5 points. Like if the Chiefs are going to win, like they win most of their games, they're probably going to win by 2 points or more. Does that make a game?
Well, they don't have to win by. They only can win by 1 point. They can win.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this one
they're underdogs. So
they can lose by a point and still cover the spread, right? So but if you think they're going to win, then you may as well bet on the Chiefs anyway, right?
Yeah. It's a small likelihood. I think the Chiefs lose by 1 point, or 2 points. I think if anything, 3 points is more likely, simply because if it's a tie game, it goes to overtime and maybe a field goal decides it. But I think that I picked the Chiefs here. How about I had a harder time picking the over under. It was 47.5, right?
47. Let's see if that's changed.
46.5.
Now it's 46.5. It was 47. We talked about this earlier.
Okay, it's 47. Okay, so I had taken the over 47, so I definitely will take the over 47 and 46.5. Does the under is it going down change things for you taking the under?
No. Maybe it should, but no, yeah. I'll take the under. I think it's gonna be more defensive than the typical Kansas City Cincinnati game. And the ankle may hobble Mahomes just enough to keep that point total down. That's my guess as to how the game's gonna go.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that it's only a half point higher than the Eagles Niners.
Yeah.
So I went under on that one. So I'm gonna go over on this one because I think so. You're being consistent under on both. So yeah,
I've joined your mentality from games. For most of the season, the strategy has been it's under until it's over, right? That's
it's always under until it's over.
But I usually tend to go overs. But yeah, in the playoffs, I've gone. Now this will be my third under out of 4 over under picks. Yeah.
Solid. I think so in my over under picks of the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 over under picks and I've gone 2 overs, only 1 under. So
yes,
I'm
you missed the
bucking
one
my normal trends.
Yeah.
But these are in the playoffs. These are also, I think, games that also might be harder to win wagers on because these games are so precisely kind of studied by the books and things like that. I think it's NFL is harder anyway because it's they're only maximum of 16 games a week and 32 teams total. So I think it's easy for casinos, sports books to keep tabs on what they think is going on in those games. If you have, I think it's easier if you happen to like follow obscure college basketball team or something like that. If you're really into Northern Iowa hoops or something like that, you might have a better inkling on a lot of the spreads and things like that if you really know how that team is, and compared to Vegas, it's just one of many teams to follow. I don't know. I picked Northern Iowa. I was just picking the team in the middle of the country, but that seems that's not followed too much.
Right.
But yeah, outside of Northern Iowa, where is University of Northern Iowa located?
It is in
Kurt Warner's alma mater.
Cedar Falls. Cedar Falls.
I think Cedar Falls is like eastern Iowa, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like straight. It's northeast from Ames.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of Cedar Rapids. I think
that is straight east of Des Moines.
Yeah, I was thinking of Cedar Rapids rather than Cedar Falls is north, Cedar Rapids is east. I was thinking of Cedar Rapids. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes Cedar Falls. Which is nicer, Cedar Falls or Cedar Rapids?
I don't know. I actually haven't spent much time in Cedar Falls. Cedar Rapids is a pretty decent city, actually. I've been there a little bit. I had some family that live near there too. So
It's between Chicago and
yeah, if you
Des
drive
Moines.
by it, if you take I-80 to Chicago from if you go up to Des Moines and then across, then you're going to drive pretty close there on the south side of Cedar Rapids on the way through.
How about Sioux Falls versus Sioux City? Do you have a Sioux Falls? I guess is in South Dakota rather than Iowa, but
Right. Sioux Falls. My grandmother was from near there, I think. So, in Sioux City, my dad was actually from Sioux City. So
I thought there was a Sioux City connection for
there's
you.
always been a big joke about Sioux City not smelling very good. But there's
Sioux City reminds me. It's a little bit like
factors.
Quincy, Illinois. It's one of those river towns, like a St.
Yeah.
Joseph, Missouri, Hannibal kind of hard scrabble kind of river town.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And then what's the town that's right next to Omaha?
Council Bluffs.
Oh, Council Bluffs. Yeah, that's right. That's supposed to be a rougher town there.
It's Omaha's East St. Louis.
Right. Yes. Yeah, there were some guys that lived in the dorm down the hall from me were from Council Bluffs.
I think it might be nicer than East St. Louis, but it's like that. It's yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. We're talking more. I'm trying to remember how we got on this topic, but back to the Chiefs.
Yes.
Bengals. I guess Kurt Warner. We talked about Kurt Warner. He was from the University of Northern Iowa, probably the most famous NFL alumnus
from Northern Iowa.
From that university.
Probably.
Do we have any other comments on the Chiefs coming up?
We still have our prop bets to go.
Oh, our prop bets. That's right. We have prop bets. I guess we want to talk about mine first. Mine was a receiving touchdown prop this game.
Was it specifically receiving, or is it just a touchdown?
I guess it's anytime touchdown touchdown scored by a receiver. I made it on a receiver. Kadarius Toney has it was plus 260 for a $100 bet. If he scores a touchdown, Toney, I think, is a big part of the offense, both especially near the goal line, which has been where most of the Chiefs touchdowns have come this year. There haven't been a lot of long touchdown passes for Mahomes. They've all been either short or they've been runs inside the red zone. So, and Toney figures into both of those, especially when they get close. I think in the playoffs they break out a lot of gadget plays. It seems like maybe Mecole Hardman is still going to be out, so Toney is the gadget guy. He's working more into the offense. So, I don't think he had a touchdown last week, but he has had a couple in the last few regular season games. So I think he's might be due, especially against I think against Cincinnati's defense, you have to kind of pull out all the stops. So, and they're going to be really gunning probably on Kelsey, since Kelsey did so well against Jacksonville. So,
and basically everyone else all season long.
Yeah, but it might open up the receivers a little bit more. And of the ones, I think the likely ones, I think, are probably Juju and Kadarius Toney, and Toney had higher payout, so he is plus 260. So I'm going Kadarius Toney with anytime touchdown. I was tempted to go with Patrick Mahomes scoring a touchdown, meaning he rushing for a touchdown or catching a touchdown. I'm sure he's going to throw for at least one, but on his hobbled ankle, he was 8-1, 800 plus 800, and I thought, nobody's going to expect it, but maybe he'll have a little scramble or something and be able to do it. If anyone can do it, I'm going to kick myself if Mahomes does score a touchdown, even if Toney gets one. If Mahomes does, that's a missed opportunity for me. But he would have been plus 800. That really would have put me. If that had happened, it would really put me in control.
So what'll happen is the Chiefs will win 46-0. Toney will not have a touchdown, but Mahomes will have multiple rushing touchdowns. They'll flip the table.
Yes. I would actually be. I would be enthused. I would be ecstatic if the Chiefs won 46-0. At least my spread would be right.
Right. You get at least one of the three then, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And with Tony too, though, he is returning kicks, I think, too. So you've got even like another outside chance, at least anyway, for a potential score.
Yeah, punt return touchdown, maybe. I don't think he's been kickoff. I think it's usually just Pacheco back there, but punt return touchdown. Exactly. Yeah. And you never know. And just random weird scores.
Yeah.
Triple reverse, either pass or run. Like, it could be Tony. If they do the snow globe play or whatever again or something, It could be Tony again. So he's shifty and he's becoming one of my favorite players of the team.
Especially with Mahomes' ankle injury, you'd think that they may be a little more conservative about throwing downfield, but Tony is one of those guys that they do use a lot of like short passes that just gets him in an open field with a chance to break something big. So it's like a low percentage risk and a high percentage outcome. And I think he's the guy they tend to go to in those scenarios. So
he's the most like Tyreek Hill of any of the receivers that they have. MVS Valdez-Scantling might be more of a deep threat than Tony, but Tony kind of has both of those things, and yards after the catch, shiftiness. That's Tony. So we'll see. How about yours? What do you think? What's your prop bet on?
And so here, I think again is the Mahomes injury may have affected this pick for me. I think too. So, but I do think I didn't want to pick based on an outcome that the Mahomes is going to be throwing for yards. So I went with scenario where I think that Cincinnati is going to have to be throwing a lot. And so I'm taking Burrow at 325 plus passing yards at plus 270.
Plus 270. So very similar, again, a little bit higher payout than mine. I guess there are two scenarios where you think Burrow might score or might throw for that many yards. Either they're winning in a rout, or the Chiefs are way ahead, and the Bengals are kind of trying to come back. Is that your thinking?
Yeah. So, I think it's if the Bengals are ahead, they maybe do a lot of short passes, but I think they're still going to be throwing. But I think it's going to be either a close game or they're going to be having to play from behind, where Burrow's going to have to throw for yards. And 325 isn't a crazy amount of yards for a playoff game, especially when it's with this much on the line.
And I guess you think it's against the Chiefs secondary is probably their weakest link on defense, simply because of the youth in the cornerback position. It's new safeties, youngish safeties too. Reed is in his first year here. Thornhill's still young. Brian Cook, if he ends up playing a lot, is a rookie. So, and the cornerbacks are all rookies, or Snead, I guess, is in his third year now. He's the old man of the group. So it's a youthful secondary. So I would guess the Bengals will try to exploit that.
And I guess in their first matchup was Chase was injured, wasn't he? He didn't play that game against the Chiefs. Is that right? I don't think he was back yet from his injury, so I think T. Higgins was the lead receiver in the game. I think in the AFC Championship game last year, Jamar Chase had a lot of yards. But I think in the matchup this season, I think Chase was out.
So Burrow. So I'll look at the stats last. No, Chase did play.
Was he just? Maybe he was just back.
Oh wait, that's the AFC Championship. I'm sorry, I was looking at the AFC.
I think he had a lot of yards in that game.
So the AFC Championship last time, Burrow had 250 yards.
Yeah.
Higgins had 103. Chase had 54 and a touchdown receiving. Mahomes 3 for 275, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Burrow was 250, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Well, now I'm feeling less confident about my 325, Mike.
That was last year's. And I'm trying to find Chiefs Bengals December 4th. So Mahomes this past time was 223 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. The Chiefs he did have a rushing touchdown. Remember that kind of Air Jordan touchdown.
Yeah.
Pacheco had 14 carries, 66 yards, a touchdown. MVS led with 71 yards for the Chiefs receiving. Tony did not play in that game.
He was injured, yeah.
Chase and T. Higgins and Boyd all played the last game.
Maybe
Chase had 97
just
yards.
gotten back. Maybe that was like he just came back for that game.
Boyd had 60 yards. T. Higgins had 35 yards and a touchdown. It was Samaje Perine had the big. Mixon was out that game. That might have been
maybe that was it. Yeah,
we were thinking, but that doesn't really matter. Mixon and Perine are both good running backs.
Yeah,
but Joe Burrow had 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I guess that's why it was 270 rather than plus 100.
Yeah,
but I think I think the idea is that the Chiefs are scoring a lot. The Bengals are going to have to pass a lot, and the Chiefs probably wouldn't mind, giving up a lot of short passes.
Yeah,
as long as they don't let.
As long as they don't lead the scores, right? Yeah.
Yeah, as long as Chase is really good. I guess one. So the referee, who are the?
Oh, I had it up earlier. But I don't have it.
It was
hang on, I got it.
Torbert.
Hussey and Torbert. Hussey for the NFC. And
Ronald Torbert. Maybe I think it's one of those things where I think if they call it close in the secondary, usually the Chiefs are worse off, but Chase especially likes to push off a lot, so maybe there might be an offensive pass interference called. I don't know.
You want to take a prop bet on that?
OPI.
Yes.
What is there do you see a bet?
I didn't see one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at that for the Super Bowl though, for what we did our betting spectacular a couple years ago, I guess, right, where we made some absurd number of bets. And we didn't do very well on that.
No.
Yeah, we didn't do well last year, did we?
No, I think we take almost a 2-year hiatus because we were still recovering from that disastrous Super Bowl that we thought going in. It seemed like Mahomes was feeling better. He was injured those playoffs, but the line got worse and worse as the playoffs went on, and Mahomes' like lower body health got worse and worse. So maybe this is what's going to happen again.
Don't say that.
The line so far, the offensive line for the Chiefs is very healthy right now.
Right.
It's the Bengals offensive line that is the problem, and maybe that is what the Chiefs can take advantage of.
And like overall, the Chiefs defense has much improved from last season. So
and I think it's improved even from when the Chiefs played the Bengals in
earlier this season.
Yeah. The Chiefs have won every game since that Bengals game. They went the game after the Bengals, right? I think they played the 49ers, and they've run the table since then. They've won like 7 or 8 in a row. So Bengals won like 10 in a row, but it's a long winning streaks for both teams.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're all set. We've got 6 bets each this week, so we're gonna see how that goes.
Yeah. It'll be a good test run for our Super Bowl week, where I hope it's the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Even if it is Carl Cheffers as the referee. The Chiefs did win with Cheffers as the referee in the 40. No, they lost with Cheffers. Cheffers was the referee against the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And he called some really bad penalties against the Chiefs. So
yeah.
Maybe the Chiefs are due for a makeup.
That was the AFC Championship game from the year before that, wasn't that? Was that the one that Cheffers was the?
No, Cheffers was the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl.
He might have been AFC Championship too, but he was the Super Bowl when they kept calling pass interference and all these penalties on the Chiefs that were kind of really iffy or non-existent, and basically that allowed the Buccaneers to take a commanding lead going into the half.
Yeah.
And then the Chiefs got penalty because like Tom Brady and Chris Jones were yelling at each other, but of course Chris Jones gets the penalty and not Brady, because he's the angry black man yelling at the calm, level-headed white guy. So
Naturally,
it's one of those things.
Yeah. Great. So will we be back next week to make bets on the Pro Bowl, Mike?
Are there bets to be made on the Pro Bowl this year, since they are not actually playing?
It's like a flag football game this time, right? Or skills challenge?
Skills challenge. If there are bets that can be made, I think we should do it. And because we can also at least recap the AFC and NFC Championship games.
Sure.
And bet on the Pro Bowl. Did you know you could buy a Pro Bowl ticket for as little as $36 if you want to go next week?
Now, the Pro Bowl is now in the same host city as the Super Bowl now. Is that right?
Super Bowl 2023 is it's in Arizona this year. It's in Glendale, at the Cardinals Stadium. The Pro Bowl is in the Raiders Stadium in Vegas. It's pretty close, but not.
Yeah, I was thinking they moved to because it used to only be. It was always in Honolulu, right? Wasn't that where they?
Honolulu for years, and then they moved it to Miami.
Okay.
Sometimes, and then I think it's bounced around.
Yeah. Okay.
Pro Bowl. That's the the jewel in the crown of the NFL season. If you can.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Yes.
The sweetest plum.
Well, if the sports books have made betting available on that, then we'll probably be back to make.
Yeah, and that seems to be the one that there are conspiracy theorists and people that think things are rigged. But that would be those outcomes would be the most riggable of any, I think.
For sure.
Because it's only one person doing some skills competition or somebody trying to throw it, or it seems.
But it's easier. It'd be easier to tank a performance than it would be to win it, unless there's some kind of officiating somehow.
That's true.
Right.
Point shaving, I guess we could say.
Yes.
Well, on that conspiratorial note, we will end this week.
This time.
Not me this time. Yeah, I just think. Yeah, I don't think the Pro Bowl is rigged, which is.
They'll
all die on
that out. Make
organized gambling has infiltrated the Pro Bowl. Once the Pro Bowl was our most sacred of all institutions, and the one we could really trust with its it was above reproach, I think, but no.
High integrity.
Really being questioned, yes. But on that note, do we have anything else?
I think so.
Let's call it a day. Another week is in the books for the Warning Track Power Hour. Tune in next week after these games to see how we did and how you might have done. And until then, as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our little broadcast thing that we do here, either via YouTube or one of our many podcast delivery vehicles. And until then, we bid you good day.